Sycamore Steam Show August. We're happy to see you all here after 2 years away, and I can speak personally when I say that every operator and exhibitor here is ready to put on a fantastic show for you. The first steam engine we have coming up is a Minneapolis steam traction engine. This is a 20 horsepower model. Minneapolis offered 3 sizes in their later years, a 20, 22, a 24, and a 28. This engine is owned by the Peterson family out of Hampshire, Illinois, and is pulling a matching Minneapolis threshing machine. Oftentimes, farmers would chip in since machinery was so expensive and share the machinery, and it would go from farm to farm. Any whistles? We'll have this Minneapolis threshing machine working later today in the center of the ground, separating wheat the same way they did 100 years ago. Up next, we have another engine owned by the Peterson family of Hampshire, Illinois. This machine is a brick Eclipse built in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. It's a little unusual to see an engine like this in this part of the country since they were built out east. Unlike most of the engines you'll see on the ground, this is a double cylinder. The Minneapolis you just saw is a single cylinder engine. This has 2 cylinders, meaning that it gets, in theory, twice the power. Any whistles on there, guys? The brick Eclipse is pulling a matching water wagon ever made. This machine was built in 1916 and is owned by the Northern Illinois Steam Power Club. If any of you are from Sycamore and know where Park Avenue is, the Blooming Gardens building is the original Illinois Thresher Company factory. I mentioned that this is a 22 horsepower engine. The Illinois Thresher Company offers 3 different sizes, a 20, 22, and 25 horsepower models. There are 3 known 20 horsepower models, 2 known 25s, and this is the only 22 horse left in existence.
I gotta stay here with the stroller. Why don't you sit down? Sit down.
And this engine is operated by the Stevens and Bacon family, all out of Sycamore. Ford Huron steam traction engine is owned by Tom Runcie of Maple Park, Illinois. It is one of 3 such engines on the ground here. And while the engine passes by, I'll explain a little bit of steam theory to everybody. If you see the engine proper, you'll notice there's 1 small cylinder up ahead and 1 long cylinder. Sorry, the microphone isn't working too well. But what happens is a high pressure in a small cylinder is equal to low pressure in a big cylinder. So steam comes from the boiler into the small cylinder, pushes the piston one direction once, and is exhausted then into the big cylinder, so you get twice the thermal efficiency from the same batch of steam. One trick with these single-cylinder engines is that it's possible to get them stuck on what is known as dead center. So you can put steam into the engine either direction and it will not turn. You have to manually crank the flywheel over to begin again. We've got Michelle Bacon at the wheel and Jack Stuffle at the throttle. Any whistles?
The other reason they drive it backwards is it's a lot of fun.
Next in line, we have another 90 horsepower Ford Huron steam traction engine. These engines in particular are known as Longfellows for the unusually long barrel of the boiler. That again is a concept to get more efficiency out of the machine. This engine is owned by the Gould family of Naperville, Illinois. Another important thing to notice about these Ford Hurons are the lugs on the rear wheels actually pass into the wheel itself. That was a marketing feature of the Ford Huron engines, and they were supposed to be self-cleaning, i.e. they would never have dirt on them. Any whistles up there? Thanks for bringing it through. Next up, we have a 40 horsepower case engine owned by the Hubbard family. This is being operated by the Kalsinski family today. The case is one of the most prolific manufacturers of steam traction engines during the era of steam. You'll see more case engines than you will any other manufacturer. One feature to notice about this engine is the spark arrestor on top of the smokestack. When you were in a dry field full of wheat and other combustibles such as a wooden threshing machine that costs a lot of money, you wouldn't want to set those on fire. So you have a long leather belt like you see around the grounds today. You flip the stack cover up, the spark arrestor, and it would keep all the sparks up from their expensive machinery. Any whistles on the case? What's that locomotive whistle sound like? Alright. Next up we have the Fruit family's Buffalo Springfield steamroller coming through. These are fairly unusual to see in the preservation era. Features a vertical boiler. Requires 2 people to operate, one to actually drive and another to fire. And there is no seat for the fireman, just for the operator, so the fireman has to walk alongside. Any whistles on there? If it ever rains here on the ground, we take this out around the cement area and smooth the ground out. Next up, we have a 22 horsepower double-cylinder Ted Gonerman steam traction engine. This is owned by the Staley family in Portland, Illinois. This engine recently went through a complete repaint and now resembles its appearance fresh from the factory in Mount Vernon, Indiana. Remember the dead center I talked about earlier on that Ford Huron? You don't get that with the double cylinders. It's impossible to get one stuck. You can move it any direction, either way, no matter where the engine sits. Next in line is a beautifully restored 65 horsepower case owned by the Fruit family. One unusual feature about this engine is the kerosene burning headlight on the front. This is not an aftermarket modification. These were an option from the factory. If you were stuck out in the threshing field late at night and needed to get back to the farm, you would turn the headlight on and it would guide you back home. I said cases are the most prolific stock or make of steam engines you'll find, and a 65 horsepower model such as this one are the most common of the case engines. Any whistles on there? Any more? Alright, thanks for bringing it through. Here we have a home-built traction engine. This is mounted on a truck chassis with a stationary vertical engine and a vertical boiler. This is the product of amassing a bunch of parts and putting them together into something real cool. You'll find a lot of these around the Midwest at different threshing shows, and some are just as big as these traction engines that can reach up to 40 miles an hour and are fully street legal. This engine is owned by Bob Gell, Lombard, Illinois. Alright. Next up is another beautifully restored case. This is a bit smaller than the 65 you just saw. This is a 50 horsepower model, and it's probably the next most popular engine of the case line. Again, notice the kerosene burning headlight on the front. This is owned by the Drury family in Holcomb, Illinois. Any whistles? Alright. Next up, remember I said Minneapolis offers 3 sizes of traction engines, the 20, 24, and 28. This is a 24 horsepower model, owned by the Lucas family of West Chicago, Illinois. A trademark feature of Minneapolis is the head tank you see in front of the chimney. This is for extra water capacity, so you could operate the engine for longer without having to stop and refuel. Any whistle? This is owned by the Balk family of Hell Lake, Wisconsin. These were branded as universal engines because you could do a whole different myriad of work with them. You could run a sawmill, you could thresh grain on a threshing machine, you could pull a house if you needed to. But more often just a plow. Yeah, John says he could do a lot more work than a Port Huron. He's up there with his family there. And he whistles today. And he whistles. John is very involved with the Rock River Dredgery, which is in Edgerton, Wisconsin, a show just like this coming up over Labor Day weekend. The club's steam shovel will be up there for the first time this year. If you're in the area, you need to check it out. Steam didn't last on the farm forever, and this is the first step away from steam power on the farm. This is a roughly oil pole. It looks a lot like a steam engine with the big wheels, chimney on the front, and a big flywheel. But this is the end of the steam era. This machine is owned by the Linker family in Malden, Illinois.
Next we have a Russell tractor. It's a runner-through tractor, also owned by the Linker family. And the Russell is